New York.
Councilmember Watson.
Here.
Council President Pro Tem Brown.
Here.
Council President Pugh.
Here.
You have a quorum present, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Because we have a quorum, we are in session. Gentlemen, good morning.
I guess one of the things I want to say and make very clear, that I would like to restate my position on the lawsuit. I do not agree with the basis of the lawsuit, and I demand that Corporation Counsel withdraw the lawsuit. I also demand that City Council votes to require Corporation Counsel to withdraw the lawsuit.
I'll make a motion. All right. He's still speaking?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I am.
Oh, you're good. I thought that this meeting was about us running out of cash. I didn't think this meeting was about Corporation Counsel.
The lawsuit will make us run out of cash.
I want to quietly. I would like somebody at the end of that table. Mr. Martin, we pay you a lot of money. I want you to tell us why. And I don't think it's a lawsuit. I think that a judge can ask me for a judgment about whether the consent agreement is valid. So can you explain to me why that court action would make the city run out of money?
Excuse me, Mr. President, we'll have, from a legal standpoint, we'll have our lawyer speak to that.
Our lawyer is the Corporation Counsel.
No, we got our own lawyer.
I would like the CFO of the city to explain to us how we're going to run out of cash.
Certainly, Mr. Pugh, I think that we have a $34.2 million bond payment on our pension obligation certificate, principal and interest dues this Friday.
Okay.
We were going to make that payment based on the $35 million that we were going to receive from the money that in an escrow account was controlled by the state.
Okay.
We don't receive the money based on the letter that we all received from the state treasurer, plus my verbal conversations with the state treasurer that they would not advance that money so long as this lawsuit was in place. We have about, for the week ending the 15th, we're expecting revenues of about $15 million. We have, including payroll and benefits, $34 million that we have to make in disbursements. Including the $34.2 million, we have a net of about $28.3 million that we need to pay this week on principal and interest payments. So if you add all of that up,
right,
that takes us to about $67 million that we're negative.
So what was the response to the state saying that we're not going to give you money that we'd already agreed?
What was the response?
Yes.
What kind of, there was no response. I called and confirmed that they were, that based on their letter, to confirm what they said in the letter that they were not going to disperse any money to us.
But Mr. Martin, Mr. Brown, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Lewis, we have a fiduciary responsibility to not let the city run out of cash. So if the statement to you is that we're not going to give you money we agreed to give you, then there should have been a response. There should have been a response that we can't let the city run out of cash. You as a state and we as a city, we agreed that we would do this short-term borrowing in order not to run out of cash. And so that's what the money should be used for.
And the state controls that escrow account. We can respond any way we want, but the state still controls that escrow account.
There's, Mr. Brown, you had something?
He's right. They have discretion to disperse the cash. If they choose not to disperse the cash,
they have total discretion. We can respond any way we want, but they still don't have to disperse the money.
So there was no attempt to negotiate and say, look, you know, because the corporation council, I mean, unless you fire her, Mr. Mayor, and unless there are 6 votes on this council to remove her, then she has said that she has a charter given and a charter mandated responsibility to do what she's doing.
Yeah.
And so we should not be interfering with that. In the meantime, you know, you all, the 4 of you, should be able to negotiate with the state and get the money that you know that we need in order not to run out of cash.
What we need you to do as a body is to take a vote, I think, that would dismiss the lawsuit.
Well, that would be symbolic, Mr. Mayor. You know we cannot dismiss a lawsuit.
Why not?
Well, because we did not file the court action, and we don't control the corporation council like that. And that's why the charter was written the way it was, so that the corporation council could take charter mandated action.
Let's once again, let me talk about the charter. Michael, you have some explanation in terms of legally where you think the charter violation is.
Mr. President, it is not appropriate to have the charter explained to the legislative body of the city of Detroit by someone who is a vendor. We understand the charter, I certainly understand it. So I don't need, it's disrespectful. And the issue of, I'll wait my turn, but this is not the, he's not the counsel for the city of Detroit and should not be put in a position of explaining the charter to us. Thank you.
I want to hear the rationale.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Council. For the record, my name is Mike McGee. I'm an attorney with the Videographer. So, we do what we can.
We're turning up the microphone. No, you go ahead. We're turning up the microphone.
Okay. The specific answer is that the Corporation Council does not have authority to bring lawsuits except in a very narrow realm of things that are solely within the purview of the charter. And the issue that has been brought in the lawsuit is not solely a charter issue, it's not a charter issue at all. It's a dispute between provisions of different state laws. We might grant that there's a dispute there. I'm not so sure about that, but let's just grant that for purposes of argument. The question is a matter of state law, not a matter of the city charter. And in that area, the Corporation Council does not have authority, independent authority to act without the express direction of the mayor. So there has been a charter violation, perhaps, but the charter violation is a lawsuit should not have been brought without the direction of the mayor.
Have to be resolved. However, it won't be resolved at this table by an outside council, by a mayor or city council. It's resolved in court. If there's a dispute with the charter, it's resolved through judicial interpretation of the charter. If there's a dispute with disagreement, it's resolved through the circuit court that they designed for it to be resolved with. Secondly, I find it interesting that the mayor would come and demand that this city council do anything. We can't demand that the mayor do anything. Nor does the charter allow the mayor to demand us, and it's surprising, but not so surprising, Mr. Brown, that you would so move that demand. The reason the Corporation Council has the power she has is because you're sitting in this seat because of the lawsuit that the Corporation Council allowed to take place as related to your being fired. That is why this charter stands with the teeth that it has today, because of that. Secondly, I find it appalling that we would bring an attorney here to give us an interpretation of the charter who is conflicted, one in the bond, he represented the city, represented the state, and then represented the finance commission that gave the bond. He got paid 3 ways as it related to that, and then wrote Public Act 4 and then advised us on Public Act 4. There's some mess totally here. I think that this city should have demanded that the governor not try to violate a bullying law that this state implemented and then come and try to bully this city council. If you are our partner, that means a two-way street, and there's never been a partnership with the state of Michigan. There's been a stepchild relationship. If you are a partner and a separate entity is suing the state, if the attorney general decides to go and sue somebody, the state don't stop operating because they disagree with what the attorney general is doing. The same thing should not happen here in the city of Detroit. You have an agreement, I didn't support it, but it's on the table. And until a court said that it's invalid, you move in the way that you have to move, and the governor knows that, we should know that, and we should tell the governor to stand down. I support the Corporation Council. I do not support demanding that she do anything. How are you going to demand that somebody don't follow the law? That charter mandate is very clear. Yes, the mayor can direct. Yes, city council can direct. But it's very clear in violations of the charter, and it's your interpretation. I no longer accept your interpretation for anything. And as long as this charter says that she has the right and the responsibility and the obligation to enforce this charter until a judge and a court of law say that you don't have that, then I'm not backing down from this.
Then we'll go to our list. Member Cochran's next.
Thank you, Mr. President. I support everything Member Kenyatta just said. I believe the issue of the opinion of the Corporation Council is not one that should be discussed at this table. She, by virtue of her responsibilities, she must abide by the charter. And since her opinion is that there may be a violation in an agreement that was approved by council, and that ruling is supposed to come Wednesday, why not wait till the judge rules? Why not wait? And those who say they don't favor what you did and don't like it, wait until the judge has ruled. That's the appropriate and prudent thing to do. And to say that this financial agreement that was approved by council is suddenly up for grabs because the state is not happy with the declaratory judgment request. They're two separate entities. The state of Michigan is separate from the Michigan Finance Authority. It's separately incorporated. Of course, it's connected to the state, but it's not the same as the state of Michigan. The treasurer's position as chair of that board is by virtue of his position as treasurer, and it's not the state. And this was already approved by council. And the state had already given its verbal approval for saying. It amounts to not just bullying, it sounds like extortion.
That's what it is.
And the state should not be in the business of engaging in that kind of behavior with its cities that are chartered to operate in an approved manner. It's outrageous that this kind of threat has come to the city under the guise of partnership. It's outrageous and not the kind of behavior that is seemly, and particularly given that the consent agreement never had any money on the table in the first place.
Right.
The money that they're talking about withholding is money we're borrowing. It's not money they're giving us.
Right.
This is money that our grandchildren will be paying back.
Right.
This is bond. This is a loan that they approved. This is not coming off their table, notwithstanding that other similar agreements have had states offer support for their cities. That has not had that kind of financial support with this agreement. It's outrageous to have this high-handed demand and threats of dismissal of the Corporation Council. Outrageous for this to be running on TV all weekend, that she's going to be fired. We should stand behind her and stand behind the city and stand behind our citizens. We're not subject to the whims of the media that feeds on this kind of thing. we should stand and stand solidly behind our corporation counsel, who's doing her best to stand up for the charter approved by the citizens of the city of Detroit. Thank you, Mr. President.
Frank, I understand your position, I respect your position, and I agree with you. I have been of the opinion all along that corporation counsel's opinion is exactly that, an opinion. I do not believe it has the force of law until such a time as the judge makes an opinion that either concurs or says he disagrees with the opinion. But at the end of the day, I do think the council president is absolutely right. Even if this council does take a vote to ask the corporation council to withdraw the request for declaratory judgment, and I do believe that's what it is. I think it's been mischaracterized.
It's not a lawsuit. It's not a lawsuit.
It's not a lawsuit. It is a request for declaratory judgment. But I think even if this council does vote to do that, and I don't know that there are 5 votes to do that, so if you're going to request that, I hope you count those votes. Because they may not be there, to be perfectly honest with you. But even if the council does choose to do that, corporation council, under the language of this new charter, I believe, does not have to do that, which raises the obvious question. Have you spoken recently with the corporation council as opposed to coming here? Because ultimately that's who you got to talk to.
The answer is yes, on several occasions.
And what was the most recent occasion?
On Saturday, her position was she was not going to change her position.
Then, frankly, I don't know where else there is to go. Unless the council is willing to go ahead and vote, and at that point, we could always see whether or not that will sway her to change her opinion. But frankly, I think, to be perfectly honest with you, I think it's unfortunate that we even had this meeting. You recall we talked on Friday. I told you, I think it's a good idea to meet. I think the conversations right now need to be taking place. I know people hate to hear the term behind closed doors because then they think there's something secret going on. But the reality is, I think the way this meeting is probably going to go is not going to help the city's cause. I think the headlines that will be generated as a result are not going to help the city's cause. I think the way this will be angled and slanted at 12, 5, 6, 10, and 11 o'clock on the news is not going to help us out. I think we need to step away from the table, cool off, and have other conversations. I don't think this is the place to be doing.
Right.
Thank you.
I agree with you. Because to say that there was no response to the state, so your position is, Mr. Martin, that if we do run out of money, it will be because the state is failing to give us money that they agreed to give us.
That is correct.
Okay. So it's not an action that this body can take, but it's negotiations that you all should be undertaking to get the money. So, all right. Member Tate is next, followed by Spivey and Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. Mr. McGee, I know you did mention that we're not talking about a charter issue, but the issue that the Corporation Council raised was that the fact that the charter has language that mirrors the Home Rule Cities Act. That says the municipality cannot enter into an agreement with one who owes it a debt.
That's right.
So that would be a charter issue as well, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, you're the attorney, but we have one as well who says that. How do you?
I would respectfully disagree for the reason that you gave, that it does, in essence, mimic the state law provision. The state law provision is what controls. The state law provision, MCL 117.51F, has words that are at issue. In those words, one could say, all right, we've got an issue with some other state laws. That is not a charter issue.
Even if it's in our charter?
Even though it's in the charter, because state law always, in this state, trumps local charters, without exception. This is a state law question. And state law questions can only be brought by Corporation Council in the direction of the mayor.
Well, and again, this is not a lawsuit. I agree with my colleagues. Here's the deal.
Quiet, please.
Every decision that we've made based on this consent agreement, financial stability agreement, whatever you want to call it, has been under a cloud of scrutiny. Is it legal or not? We've said, many of us from day one, once there became an issue of the legality, let's take it to the court, let the judge determine, and that will be the end of it all. And so the concern I have is that when we're now talking about saying, yeah, we know that there's possibly a violation, but we don't want to deal with it. That's an issue. Why not deal with the issue today so that we don't have to, we're doing all this work and getting all of our house in order and then have it all fall apart because of a legal challenge down the line. My stance is let's deal with it now because it is, in fact, it is an opinion. It certainly is an opinion, but it's going before a judge. And the judge is going to say yes or no, then I'm sure there's going to be an appeal process for sure. But I just don't see how this seeking a declaratory judgment impacts the deal that we all agreed upon, that I signed off on as well. I don't see how that affects that deal. And, it appears that there would be a reneging on the state's part, not the city, in this situation. So I support the Corporation Council moving forward with a seeking a declaratory judgment. Again, this has been characterized as a lawsuit. It is not. It is not by this body, not by the mayor and his administration. It is litigation, and we're moving into it, absolutely. But it is not a lawsuit that is, in my mind, confrontational. It's to seek a judgment to determine if it is valid, if it is not. Because I'm tired of being placed under scrutiny on every move we make within this consent agreement, where we keep hearing people saying that it's illegal. You can't do it because it's illegal. Once the judge rules this way or that way, we move forward. But we just cut $250 million out of the budget without any assistance at all from the state. Yeah. So I know that we can do it ourselves. And so I am from the standpoint that we have to get together and find out now, determine, seeing that the Corporation Council just Saturday said that she was not going to withdraw this particular litigation, what's plan B? Because plan B can't just be to allow the shoe to drop and we do nothing. Right. We need to figure out collectively what that plan B is. And I agree with Member Cottle. I think that this conversation should have been had in a different manner because it's not going to be as productive as it could be in this particular thing. So I just ask again, through you, Mr. President, to the mayor or anyone there, what's plan B outside of just allowing whatever happened? Because if we were to sign a resolution as the president said, it would be simply symbolic based on the charge. Gentlemen. Yes.
Let me just say that President Pugh and the Council, that the litigation, in my view, is an issue that's going to work itself out. My concern is that I don't take the state threat that they're not going to advance us that $35 million as an idle threat. So I have a real issue about cash. And you can debate the litigation issue and Corporation Counsel's future. But my concern is if we don't make that bond payment, principal and interest, I think there will be all kinds of potential negative repercussions on all the city's other debts. So it's a major, major issue, I think, and we really need to try to get through it. I don't think the state is making either threats.
So what you're saying, Mr. Martin, is that the threat is not because of the violation that we've incurred on the city side. It is because of a litigation that the Corporation Council is interested to.
That's what the letter from the state treasurer states.
So I just want to make it clear, there's no violation on behalf of this council, this administration, based on this agreement. We're following the terms at this point. There has been no violation. It is strictly based on the fact that the Corporation Council entered into this litigation with the state to determine the validity of the consent agreement. Thank you.
All right, Cockrell had something on that point.
Well, again, we will go back to it, but I am still looking for a plan B. Collectively, what is our resolution outside of, again, waiting for the shoe?
So let's back up. The 137 was always the plan B. So we came to you months ago saying we're running out of cash, and the borrowing of the 137 was supposed to get through. So the issue is always, we knew it was in two pieces. We disclosed that it was $80 million first, and the remainder 57 to follow of takeout. And the issue is when you say the Plan B, there's no Plan B with respect to not getting that cash, because unless you go to Plan B of having a payless payday, or unless you take other very, very negative actions,
Such as?
with not paying your vendors. And which has the same effect of not paying the POC vendors.
We're barely paying vendors now. I mean, we're making nominal payments to vendors. And there's some very important vendors that I don't think we'll be able to pay by June 30th. It's not like everybody's receiving the money that they're owed.
Hold on just a moment. Taco had a point on Mr. Tate's point before we move on to the next topic.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Through you to Mr. Martin, is it the real issue here in terms of why we have a problem? The uncertainty in the bond market because of the big question mark hanging over whether or not this is or is not.
That in my view,
Finding not to
Mr.
be.
Cockrell, is a potentially much larger issue than what we're talking about right now.
Could you elaborate on that?
Well, I think that if we don't make that payment, I don't know what kind of covenants we may have in our other bond agreements, but if we don't make that payment, my fear is that there will be a very deleterious effect on the city's treasury going forward.
Which is something that I think we've all got to keep in mind. And I think the other problem that we have here is it's almost like we're trying to argue this both ways, because on the one hand, we're saying, well, state, you've got to deliver, you've got to give us the money. That was the other part, the second part of what we agreed to. Well, you can't argue that in one breath, but then in the other breath say, well, until we determine whether or not this is a legally valid and binding agreement, we're not going to move forward. We're not going to confirm the governor and the mayor's appointment to the FAB. We're not going to do ours. You can't say, on the other hand, state, do what you said you were going to do under this agreement, but then in the other breath say, we're not going to do the other pieces. Thank you.
There's been no violation at this point. It's been stated at the table. There's no time frame.
Spidey,
I would argue that there is.
Go ahead. Thank you, Mr. President. The Michigan, according to the section 12.194 of the Michigan compiled laws, the Michigan Finance Authority is created as an autonomous public body corporate and politic within the Department of Treasury. However, it is autonomous, functions independent of the department. It functions independent of the department. So it is not something that ought to be governed as if it were the state of Michigan. Independent of the department and autonomous are key phrases within the state law related to this Michigan Finance Authority. The bond council's role, and there was a bond council, the city paid handsomely to negotiate this deal of $137 million. Their role is to make sure it's airtight. That's why you would pay a bond counsel, to make sure once a bond is approved, that there is no backstepping, that there are no loopholes. So whoever the bond counsel was for this, if the bond that was approved by this body and the state and the mayor has suddenly become subject to partisan pressure, then that's an issue that goes right back to the bond counsel, whose role it was to ensure that this deal was airtight. That's why you pay them. It shouldn't even be up to conversation or discussion or debate. And it is not, it is autonomous, it is separate, created by the state, but it is not the state. It's autonomous and should be treated with the same kind of business principle that you treat every other contract. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
He's sitting at the table.
On her point, go ahead.
Was Miller Canfield involved with the bond?
Through the chair, yes.
And then Miller Canfield also served as bond counsel?
Okay, that was a floor, I was on this one. And in fact, if I may add, with respect, I would disagree as to whether Indiana pays the state, because we'll talk about that at other times. But the reason why the question is raised is because the position of the chief legal officer of the city of Detroit is based on the provisions that she has cited that contracts between the city and the state are of questionable enforceability. That is the key legal issue. It's not just the financial stability agreement, it's agreements generally between the city and the state. And that undermines, as Mr. Martin said, a wide range of documents, including, but not limited to, the bond documents.
Spidey Jones. President, my point was on Chris Brown's comment maybe Mr. Martin when we approved the 137, initially it was tie bar to the consent agreement. We said, no, we're not going to sign it, it's tie bar. There's no clear explanation today, and when I'm here reading this letter here, it's almost as if they are tie bar, that we're not going to get the disbursement if we don't move forward with the consent agreement.
There's no tie bar.
It's not a tie bar,
There's no tie
that's
bar.
where it seems.
There's an escrow agreement that allows the treasurer to disperse the funds because it's an MFA at their discretion.
And if by chance, hypothetically, Corporation Counsel did not move forward, wanting to say it's not legal, could they arbitrarily say, we're not going to give you any money? They can do that anyway, right?
Sure.
Exactly. So they can, if she takes away right now, they can still say, we're not giving you $35 million.
But that wouldn't happen.
It's a possibility. It's a possibility, right?
Let's back up. There's a lot of discretion in the treasurer. The treasurer can appoint an emergency manager right now.
So good.
And so the issue is, I mean, we're all dealing with good faith on all this. So the issue becomes, you know, how do you on the one hand like as Councilman Cockrell said, on the one hand challenge the agreement, on the other hand say that the bond document is enforced. I think we're trying to figure out how to make progress.
I'm on this, I'll come back.
No, you're on the
Oh, that's me right now? Councilman Cockrell made a point about what this is going to look like when we leave this table again. And I agree wholeheartedly. Everyone around this table should be working in concert, and we're not. The council and the mayor are not on the same page. If it's correct, we have 2 days. We expect to hear back from the judge. That's 2 days. I think everybody supported. It's been approved, and I'm not instructions to it. The consent agreement. This council had a quasi-revenue consensus conference. We approved the budget, the easiest since you have been here, we've been here, the easiest budget process ever. We want to make the 2 appointments. We want to move forward, and I think the state ought to see that. And when we received the letter since we got from the treasurer's office, it's not genuine at all. I think we're moving in good faith. We're only expecting the judge to say, hear back from the judge and say, this is where it is. If the judge says it is legal, we'll move forward, make our appointments, and we go there. If it's not legal, then we move there as you ask for Plan B. But I think that you all have, as some members of council, have a relationship with the state of Michigan. Where the state of Michigan could say, okay, we'll give you, but if they're not worried about it, what's the big deal? I do think they are a little concerned. I know Mr. Martin, we met Friday, I think, to come to meet with me, that the state is not, they're not bluffing. But to send a letter and what they send that is meritless, if it's meritless, then let the judge decide where it is, declaratory judgment. I don't think they're moving in good faith. Over the weekend, folk approached me, are you going to fire Corporation Counsel? No, we're not going to do that. And I think it's irresponsible to make comments like that. We need to hear from the judge and be on one accord at this table, because all across this state, and this has gone beyond the state of Michigan, is the council and the mayor are not getting along once again. If we have stood united, I believe that would have shown something to the state of Michigan that we're willing to work together. And so I appreciate what we got from Mr. Martin. And even before he got here, we knew that we may run out of cash this week here. I think all that's been said should be said. We should move on. If we're not going to go into a closed session, I think we should deal with legal issues. We should be done here. But I think we ought to wait till Wednesday, hear from the judge, and after that, we make our move in. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. On that point, yeah. I think that one of the questions is really timing. I mean, okay, so you get a judgment Wednesday. Either party is going to appeal, and then you're going to appeal to the Supremes. And to Jack's point, ultimately, we're still on cash. So the issue becomes, how do we, we do have a legal principle here to make sure that the consent agreement is valid. On the other hand, we have a financial rock and hard place. So those are just 2 tough decisions. And what I'm trying to figure out is how we're going to deal, before Jack got here, I was dealing with the cash. How do we deal with the cash flow shortage? Because even if we get the judgment, we're still going to have a cash flow question. Even getting to the $250 million of the first off the budget is going forward. So, I mean, we're just sort of delaying is not the right word, but I don't know when the litigation on the consent agreement will end. I mean, say if Wednesday the judge makes a decision, says, okay, you know, the consent agreement is valid, does that mean that you guys are not going to appeal? Does that mean that the state won't appeal? But we're in between a rock and a hard place.
We would appeal. That's President, I would add a third. I would add, Mr. Brown mentioned the consent agreement and the money's coming. I would add a third, the charter. We were elected to follow the law. The Corporation Council has to follow the law, and we can't ask her to break the law, to break the charter. And the original comment made by the mayor, you know, ask Corporation Council to stand down. We can't do that. We're breaking the law if we actually do that. And we shouldn't be at this table if we ask her to break the law.
Right. And Chris, your characterization of you guys appealing, now you know.
Us.
All right, Mr. Mayor.
I would agree that none of us around this table want Corporation Council to break the law. I mean, we had a meeting on that, and I think we all agreed that that's not where any of us were. She rendered an opinion, and I don't agree with the opinion. Because once we run out of money, there's no way that we can run the city. And that's a risk that we're up against as we speak here today. If we don't get the state to come to the table. I've talked to the governor, I've talked to the treasurer on more than one occasion over the weekend. They don't seem to be backing down at all. So I don't want to play this game of roulette and keep our citizens at risk. I mean, even the employees in the city of Detroit are dependent upon that money coming in so that they can get paid and live their lives and pay their outstanding bills and debts. And so, once again...
Did you say that to the governor and to the treasurer?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Why, folks?
But you can't force or make them do something at this point. I mean, you talk about negotiations. You talk negotiations. We're doing that. We're doing that. But they have the hammer right now. They've got the money.
Jones is next, followed by Jenkins, Watson, Brown.
First of all, I'm going to say that I support the Corporation Council doing her job. I didn't try to ask the opinion that she rendered. But I want to say we have 5 smart people sitting at the end of this table. And although you wasn't here when the consent agreement was drawn up, that I did not support, you served as counsel for the consent agreement. You served and worked on Public Act 4. You served as counsel for the bond. And Chris is saying that the bond, which there was language that tied the revenue sharing and that the consent agreement and the escrow money all together. Why then was there no language, any place, to protect the bond money if in fact something came up with the consent agreement? Why was there no language anywhere? There was a lot of discussion about the consent agreement. There was discussion about the bond being tied to the consent agreement. There should have been some language somewhere to protect the money, the bond money, if in fact we ended up here today, like we're here today. There was nothing in place. Why was there any language? If that was plan B, and we knew that that was plan B, then we should have been doing everything humanly possible to protect the money for plan B.
If I may, Mr. Chairman. In fact, everything possible was done. And in fact, assurances were made. Assurances were made by the city of Detroit as a corporate entity that was entering into contracts, a variety of contracts, as I said, not just the financial stability agreement, not just the consent agreement, as I said a minute ago, but a range of contracts that are part of a financing. And it is the assumption of all parties that when contracts are entered into, the parties that enter into them are going to live up to them and believe them to be valid. What has caused the current litigation, what caused the current situation, is litigation in which, as I said, the lead corporate counsel voice for the city of Detroit has said Contracts between the city and the state are questionable, not just the financial stability agreement, contracts. That's a new fact. That was never on the table, that was never discussed at the time, and I think most people were surprised therefore by the filing of litigation.
But on that point, it was never discussed because no one ever thought about adding the corporation council in to the consent agreement. And the corporation council basically got the consent agreement at the same time we as this body got the consent agreement. And I said at that point, I thought it was a bad idea to not have a corporation council in negotiations with you all as you worked on the consent agreement.
Let's back up to the point. The point that you raised was the enforceability of the bond opinion. The bond, Crystal gave an opinion on the day that the contract was enforceable. On the day she gave a valid opinion saying those bonds are enforceable and would be payable. A week later, after we signed the consent agreement, she reverses her opinion and says no longer are they enforceable. Because not only that, is because there's a violation that makes the obligation void. Well, how can on the one hand you say that it's enforceable, and then 2 weeks later say it's not enforceable, and expect to have the same result? That's nonsense.
Well, first of all, how can you not get somebody involved in this council, push Crystal Crittenden, the attorney, to render an opinion? She rendered a very fast, rapid opinion because she was just given the agreement at the time that we were given the agreement, and she wasn't ever involved in negotiating. We had an agreement ahead of time. We worked on it, and as you very well know, we went backwards and forth, even at this table, we went backwards and forth. But she was never involved. And she rendered an opinion because someone at this table asked her to render an opinion, and she rendered a very rapid opinion without having enough time to actually go through it.
Mr. Smith,
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Blunt has somewhat mischaracterized those two opinions. They do not conflict in that the contracting bodies are two separate entities. One is the Michigan Financial Authority, and the other is the state of Michigan. So to say that the opinions contradicted on the contract is false. They do not. They both are valid opinions in the Corporation Council. The Corporation Council has some.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Member Jones, you.
I'm just going to say that, you look carefully, you feel that there were no conflict of interest in all of the roles that you played with the Environment Council, Consent Agreement, Financial Stability Agreement Council, working with Public Act Court, and working with the State Department. There's no conflict of interest in that.
Councilmember Jones, I think you are very well familiar with our firm. We've been in business of advising governments for about 100 years, and most of that time in the city of Detroit. I think our roles and the different transactions are fully disclosed. They're on the record. Everybody knows what we do. And I think that the long discussions that we had here on the financial stability agreement, as I recall them for several days, Council ample opportunity to come to whatever conclusions Council wanted to in terms of our role.
So your answer is no, you don't feel the bill?
No, I don't.
I would ask a question because we're all over the place right now in terms of what happened, what didn't happen, what should have happened. My concern is what are we going to do from this point forward? If we run out of money on Friday, as Mr. Martin has said, then once again, what is our game plan? I got no problem in the next 2 days waiting for the judge to make an opinion. And we can follow that. But once again, we get in this lawsuit and we get into a litigation. Nobody knows how this is going to play out or how long it's going to take. In the meantime, we have no money to run the city. So we got to figure out, once again, what do we do on an ongoing, forward basis?
So if the judge says that the consent agreement is valid, then we should be able to get the money. If the judge says that it's not, then it's the state's prerogative. they can still give us the money.
Well, Mr. President, I mean, I think there's an important point that everybody's missing here. Crystal Crimson has never said the city cannot enter into a consent agreement with the state.
Right.
What her opinion said was as long as there is outstanding debt, as long as the state is in default, we cannot enter into a legal contract. Nobody's talking about the fact that the state owes us money.
Thank you.
If the state wants to solve this, and we can throw because there's debate about whether or not the state really owes us $224 million. I think legally they do not. That's my opinion, but I'm not a lawyer. But whether they owe us a $4.7 or $4.5 million water bill, whether they owe us over $300,000 in back taxes, unpaid parking, tickets, and all of the other debts, PLD, water and sewage on the state highways, those debts are real. So even if the judge on Wednesday says this is invalid because this is true, the state owes you money, so they are in default, you cannot enter into a contract, that can be easily resolved in a state that has a super surplus by just giving them what really adds up to less than $8 million if you take away that $224 million. So let's stay talk about, when you're talking to us about us handling our business, let's talk about you operating in good faith and handling your business as well. You know, nobody said, Crystal didn't say we can't enter into a consent agreement ever. So if the judge on Wednesday does say, and I don't think that the majority of the people around this table would want to appeal that opinion, not that it would be our choice. Mr. Brown, Mr. Mayor, this body did not tell Crystal to file this lawsuit. The charter did. She's doing her job, and to say she should be fired for doing what the charter requires her to do is frankly offensive. She should be allowed to do her job, and if the state really wants to be a partner and resolve this, they can resolve it by making sure there is no question of outstanding debt.
If I may, number one, I don't think that the executive office have ever considered firing Crystal. We're not there. It's not about Crystal. It's not personal. It's that position more than anything else in the charter. And I believe that if we've got the data that says the state owes us whatever they say, or whatever we say they owe us, I think we need to go after that. No doubt in my mind about that. But it's been very, very clear that Lansing has said the $224 million they're not going to pay. So even if we got an $8 million outstanding liability from the state, it doesn't solve our problem. It doesn't solve our problem. And I think if we got the data to prove that they owe us this money and they pay us, then what? It's not enough money to get us where we need to get.
There's been what? It's two things. One, certainly, Mr. Mayor, you have the ability to settle whatever outstanding debts there are with the state. So if you sit down and say, state, you owe us, we believe you owe us $8 million, we'll take 5 and call it even, Steve. No. Whatever the amount is, you have that ability. That's the first thing. The second thing, if that happens, then we will move forward. We would make the consent agreement valid because we can just sign and have the exact same agreement, just change the title page. We can move forward with that. That's the first thing. The second thing is if the judge says that Crystal is wrong and it is valid, the state doesn't owe us money, then we'll move forward anyway. So I don't understand what the rush is, what the fear is of us waiting until Wednesday if we really believe, if the state really believes, if you all really believe that Ms. Crimson is wrong.
We did ask Crystal that if you had a settlement, whether that would invalidate you. She said, look, that would be not the case. You couldn't settle and then go back unless you revalidate the agreement. So the issue becomes, all right.
But why revalidate the agreement?
Well, first of all, you have to
that in a day.
Agreed. First of all, you have to have the state to settle. Right? So and the state has to say there's a valid dispute and we're willing to settle. And the issue becomes that is already in the process on the water side and the sewer side and the PLD. So the question becomes, okay, you settle that. Then you have to vote to reauthorize the consent agreement. If that's the the case, you're gonna have to get the state to agree to settle.
I understand, we're gonna have to get the state to agree, no matter what. I mean, we're gonna have to get the state to agree to release the monies, as has been said multiple times. It's purely within their discretion. So as agents of this city, why are we not fighting
Right.
to do that? Why is the fight with this body
Right.
who did not bring this forward? Corporation Council brought this forward. Why is the fight to make it seem as though this body has filed some lawsuit against the state when you all know good and well, the majority of folks around this table agree, let's get into this consent agreement?
Mr. Mayor's had conversations, I've had conversations, and I don't see any indication that the state of Michigan's going to back down on this.
Yeah.
Just on that point, I mean, you know, it's on the mayor's point about moving forward and the timing of this. I mean, there's no decision going to be made on Wednesday and Thursday. The hearing is to determine whether the judge will move the hearing on the declaratory judgment from July 18th to an earlier date. And we called the clerk's office, the judge's clerk's office, and she said that's going to be extremely challenging because the schedule is tight and don't look for that to happen, although she can't speak for the judge. And so, you know, there's going to be no answer here Wednesday or Thursday on this issue. There's not going to be any answer on this for months to come. And so it's an issue of running out of money. Now, I mean, if we're looking for
Town council to make sure that the bonds, once crafted, are enforceable. And that is the issue. Not meeting with council. The bond council should be connecting with the MFA, which is autonomous entity, which said it was approving the bond agreement. They don't have a right to do that. It was negotiated and approved prior to the consent agreement even being voted on. We had expert bond counsel, which should have tied up every loophole. And the MFA is not the same as the state of Michigan. They should be held to their agreement, and the money should flow as was promised, and all members of the city official hierarchy should stand behind the agreement that should be fulfilled. It cannot be used as leverage for somebody that have the request for declaratory judgment dismissed because they don't like it. The agreement is an agreement, and it is not with the state, and MFA has already set forth all the procedures in place, and you cannot, it's at their discretion.
This courageous stand on behalf of the citizens of Detroit. We further support you for filing a court complaint with the Court of Claims in Lansing on Friday, June 1st, 2012, to scuttle